am constantly amazed by what Esteban Ocon does to make himself unhireable. And Alpine, they're not much better either. They're as bad as each other. Because the Canadian Grand Prix that's just gone made me realise this is going to be a long and messy divorce. Strap yourself in, my friend. The only comparison I can realistically make in a team wanting to get rid of their driver lickety-split are with the two Sauber drivers. But at least Valtteri and Zhou are likeable and can work together. In fact, you could say that Valtteri Bottas is the complete opposite of Esteban Ocon. He is the definition of a team player. Bottas would do really well to go to Haas next year, given the fact that they are absolutely smitten with Oliver Behrman and they need the right teacher, especially since the Mail Online decided to run with the story. For a second there, I thought they had been the ones to break the embargo that ultimately was for Yuki Tsunoda. Naughty, naughty Daily Mail. But I seriously think that Esteban's going to have a very hard time picking a team, even Haas, the team that basically was sanctuary to two drivers who otherwise would have gone off to other racing series several years ago. Based on what happened at the Canadian Grand Prix, would you really want Esteban Ocon at the same team with a brand new rookie? Because we've not seen Esteban partnering up with a rookie except for when he was a rookie himself. Now, one of the biggest misunderstandings in my Ocon video, which many people disagreed with, was that I was exonerating him of any blame from the Monaco incident or any incident that had gone before. Not so. It was more trying to explain and rationalize what had happened. I was just beyond belief with the fact that we'd seen such an audacious move given all of the other stuff that happened last year. Even the team ordered debacle in Suzuka last year was nothing compared to that. I seriously do think that what Esteban Ocon did and how he conducted himself was the final nail in the coffin. Any chance of him securing maybe more time with Alpine, another contract extension, them being able to actually recognize that right now he is the faster of the two drivers, that's all gone out the window. It's clear that the upper management don't want him, the Renault group don't want him, the team, the staff, they probably don't want him either. But they're contractually obliged to keep him. And Monaco was basically his excuse to justify terminating him. However, unlike recent firings and sackings that Alpine's made a habit out of, there's almost one every week, getting rid of a driver mid-season is far more difficult than getting rid of, say, I don't know, one of your most long-lasting employees that was the director of operations and was basically responsible for the engine department that brought Fernando Alonso 2 world titles in the 2000s. Yeah, Rob White, no longer working there anymore. And these aren't backroom employees either, these are long-lasting members of Team Enston. So when it was said that Jack Doohan would only do free practice 1 at Canada, many people were kind of surprised about it. They thought he would have been subbing in for Ocon entirely, given Faman's propensity to purging people. But then word started to get around that the only reason that Esteban Ocon would be actually racing the Alpine A524 in Montreal was due to the fact that there would have been a huge legal explosion if he didn't. The Alpine legal team and contract department basically held Faman back from benching Ocon for Montreal or perhaps even the rest of the season. According to the French publication L'Equipe and summarised by Reddit user SnoopDoge90, Alpine had acquired experienced lawyer Caroline McGrory to shore up their legal arm. Now, this isn't just some random hire from a completely different area of legal expertise. Caroline McGrory has been around Formula One for about 20 years or so. She started off at BAR, then at Mercedes, and now has gone over to Alpine. She had a brief spell over at Leicester City Football Club, so she does know a thing or two when it comes to sports law and contracts with big-name people. She was around the time when Brawn GP was fighting for its life, trying to get every single contract sorted out with Honda, the employees, potential sponsors. She's been through it all. McGrory and her new Alpine squad have been tasked to tighten up all future F1 contracts that the team had or would draft up in the future, and ensure that 2022 would not happen again, where the team basically played chicken with Alonso and Piastri, which ended up with them losing both drivers through various oversights and loopholes. And they had an angry Fernando. You don't want an angry Fernando. I mean, we do. It makes for great telly, doesn't it? As a result, McGrory's posse, according to L'Equipe, most likely instructed the Alpine boss that denying Esteban from doing his contracted job could see him arriving in Montreal accompanied by a bailiff, ordering the team to let him race, having been denied, supposedly, the right to work. Like I said, driver contracts are incredibly messy and are almost as long as many of the tracks that Formula One goes to. Sorry, Bruno, your usual tactic of just dumping people at whim without much notice, because that Rob White guy, he disappeared few days before the Canadian Grand Prix. You can't do that with the driver unless there is a good reason to do so within the contract. The only way that Fairman's going to get rid of Ocon before the end of the season is to pay him off, to not race. And that'll probably cost him several $1 million. And sure, you might think it's a drop in the ocean. Daniel Ricciardo was dropped by McLaren. They were willing to pay $18 million or so. But the difference here is, though, is that Alpine does not have that kind of cash. And even if they could easily come up with the cash thanks to their brand new Hollywood investors, I don't think the likes of Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney, and all of those big-name celebrities in the sports industry would want their money going towards paying a driver to not be there anymore. They are using that money for other things, including much-needed upgrades at Team Ensign's facilities in Oxfordshire, which includes brand new development facilities, laboratories, gymnasiums, and wellness facilities, because they've made a planning application to use a bit of green space that they are using as a temporary car park. And considering that Alpine is based around the same area where Clarkson's farm is based, good luck trying to appease the Oxfordshire Council. With Fairman's hook-slinging arm tied behind his back, this has meant that Ocon is probably not going to be sacked before the end of the year, unless that same legal team is tasked to find a clause in which the contract can be broken, or Esteban gets himself a race ban through penalty points. Which is a hard task, considering that currently, Esteban only has maybe about 3 or 4 penalty points attached to his name. He would have to do a lot of bad things to get that race ban to justify Fairman benching him for more than just that single race. But mind you, we do have Kevin Magnussen on the grid, so maybe he could pay Kevin to give Esteban some pointers as to how to gain some penalty points or something. One thing is becoming clear though, Alpine probably views the season as a bit of a write-off, much like with Sauber and even Williams, as a year to forget or to rebuild for later. Because right now, 7th place in the Constructors is the best that Alpine can hope for. Sure, they might dream of getting back to 6th place in the Constructors like they were last year, and even then that was a little bit of a dire situation. But given the fact that Racing Bulls is going from strength to strength, and Christian Horner is very keen on that team getting lots and lots of development time and getting closer to 5th place in the Constructors, they're off fighting Aston Martin, Yuki Tsunoda is having the best season ever, Daniel Ricciardo is starting to find his groove again. The odds on them getting 6th place Alpine, not likely. The best they can hope for is to try and outdo Haas. If you said that last year, that would have been the easiest thing to do ever. Alpine's probably going through the motions this year, kicking on with their brand new investors' cash and regenerating their facilities in readiness for 2026, where hopefully the Renault engine can be that little bit quicker, because it is the most down on power. And honestly, Ensign really needed some much needed TLC to shore up their assets after having weathered many storms, including them nearly going bankrupt a decade ago when they hired Kimi Räikkönen. Considering where they were in terms of the constructors, they just were going like, oh sure, Kimi, come on board. Oh, if you score a point, that'd be amazing. We'll give you €50,000 per point. And how many did he score? About nearly 400. And then of course he got 2 wins, he got many podiums. As a result, in bonuses alone, in his time with Lotus, Kimi Räikkönen got a cool €19.5 million just from that, not counting his base salary. I mean, Red Bull could afford that, but not Lotus. I reckon the team will come out of this in better condition than they were a year or so ago when Otmar Safnauer was ousted. Although I would have preferred him still being the team principal now, since he had a clear plan towards structuring the team. That wasn't, well, let's be honest here, copying McLaren's star structural plan, which has worked wonders for them as of late. But hey, at least there's a plan. It may not be El Plan, but at least they're not in a condition where they're planning to sell to Andretti. Yet. 2024 is clearly Alpine's annus horribilis. They are keen to get it out of the way, try and fix the car as best they can, ready for 2025, and then make sure the facilities are up to code, make use of that extra ATR time, and then maybe try again when the brand new regulations kick in. And on the driver front, all they need to do is just get through the remaining 15 races, tell Gasly and Ocon to play ball, there is no need to fight, Gasly's going to be there probably next year, Ocon will go somewhere else, change your pace, keep his head down, get on with the task at hand. But try telling that to those two drivers, because it's quite clear that Bruno Fairman neither can't or won't settle them both down. Otmar Safnauer, yeah, he may have brought them together, but at least he knew how to control them. He knew what he was getting himself into. I feel for the staff at Alpine, I really do. They were thrust into the middle of a long-lasting spat that these two have had since their karting days, which, if you want the short version, began so well with them being friends until Gasly started winning more than Ocon, and Ocon didn't like that all that much, and therefore it drove a wedge between their relationship. Because Ocon, as we all know from Drive to Survive, and he won't stop going on about it, had a really bad and hard time trying to find funding. He came from not a wealthy background, and he managed to get where he was today in Formula 1. We should all be happy for him. Yes, we are happy that he got there. But he doesn't need to keep reminding us. He doesn't need to keep hustling, which is why he's now no longer hireable, because he tries too hard. Dude, calm down. You're here. Chill. That relationship has not recovered, nor will it recover, because there's no need for it to anymore. It was always a bad idea to put them together, but the 2023 Alpine looked like it could just about make it work. The 2024 Alpine though? No! Bruno Famin is not interested in maintaining that relationship. As far as he's concerned, he wants team players within his ranks, and so far, Pierre Gasly is following that script, him being the poster child of Alpine, constantly in their social media, and him being the absolute bastion of the team saying, "Oh, we have amazing teamwork, oh, thank you so much team, I'm glad the cars may be coming back toward me." He's making that his team, it's clear. He's won the battle for who has the control of the Alpine operation. He does. And he's going to make sure that he keeps that script going because he'll have a guaranteed seat for next year, and Alpine might be better. And as for who's going to partner him, well, there could be Jack Doohan, there could be Zhou Guanyu, a former Alpine Academy person, and he does come with a lot of money as well, and maybe Mick Schumacher. What he's doing at WEC seems to be really impressing Bruno Famin. There's a lot of people to consider here, and all of this angst became quite evident during the Canadian Grand Prix. You would think that after Monaco and the eyes of the world drilling a hole into Esteban Ocon more than ever, them not afraid to call him out anymore, that he and the team would find some way to try and make this relationship work. Yes, he's going to be leaving at the end of the year. They probably don't like each other. Let's just keep things civil, end on a good note after all of this time together. 5 years? That's a long time. So surely you wouldn't want it to go out on a bad note. I also direct that towards Toto and Lewis. You two, please get along. Please do not end this badly. He needs to put on a good show and perhaps not draw any more negative attention to himself, and maybe get negotiations going again with other teams. Because I seriously doubt that Toto would want to put Esteban Ocon, one of his own drivers, right next to George Russell when he's already trying to gain much needed front-end experience at fighting for wins and major podiums all the time. He's clearly lacking in that. And then putting Esteban Ocon, who's going to be hustling him like crazy, that's not going to work out. And then I doubt that James Vowles would want to hire Esteban Ocon to go up against Alex, and James Vowles has even admitted that he called Esteban to tell him to stop fighting his teammates, and then at the same time saying, "You are very, very fast, but you're not a team player," essentially. But yeah, you can also tell that Val secretly maybe wants to have Ocon. He's really, really torn. You're tearing me apart, Esty! Alas, Alpine and Ocon have proven to be as bad as each other, with Gasly riding the coattails of all this drama and placing himself firmly as the good guy in this story. But we need to remember that he is also responsible for Alpine's struggles, since usually feuds like this don't remain one-sided. I see what you're doing, Pierre. You're playing Esteban like one of those Parisian accordions, aren't you? In regards to Canada, who was at fault? Did Esteban sabotage the Alpine team from potentially getting Pierre towards P8? Or did Alpine just make the wrong call at the wrong time and completely misread the entire situation and only made Esteban angry and therefore fodder to the media, which is probably maybe what they wanted in a way anyway? Well, it's quite complicated. I'm going to try and break it down. 7 laps before the end, it looked really possible that Ocon could have secured the team's best result of the year of 8th place, and Pierre securing a double points finish for the team as well. Having 5 points would bring them all the way up past the likes of Haas, and that is very much needed. They need as many opportunities as they can get, considering that Haas are not quite good enough at the moment to secure points. If Esteban had pulled that off and managed to get Alpine all the way from where they were just a few races ago, dead last, to now P7, and at least good enough, more than $30 million, that would have been a fantastic way of Esteban showing other teams that, yeah, I may not get on with Alpine anymore, but I bring results. I am quick. I gave this team tens of millions of extra dollars that they might otherwise not have had with Gasly in charge. Hire me, please. Because when you look at it, going from right at the back, thanks to that 5-place grid penalty, to P8 in a really raucous and rambunctious and chaotic Canadian Grand Prix, that is genuinely not a bad turn of performance. That should be something that should be celebrated, lauded, showing that Ocon is quick on his day when things are going well and he's playing by the rules and with the team. But then all of that completely went right out of the window, or more accurately, down below the hatch here, and now all we're talking about is Ocon getting angry on the radio, Alpine making a weird call right at the end of the last minute, and then basically Pierre just going, excellent. As we've become very accustomed to in this situation, Alpine, when one driver is ahead and the other driver is catching up, allow the drivers to swap places for that other driver to have a go, and if it doesn't work out, they give the place back. But a lot of the time it doesn't work out in the eyes of Alpine, especially when you have Gasly and Ocon. We saw what happened last year at the Japanese Grand Prix. Gasly was not too happy about that situation. He had a tantrum on the radio, which he managed to cool himself down eventually by the time he got to the media pen. But I'm just saying here that Gasly, he's not innocent in all of this either. He's had his fair share of blow-ups, but this one with Ocon definitely caught the media's attention given what happened 2 weeks ago. And you know what? Given the situation where there were only 3-ish laps to go, I kind of agree with Ocon's assessment of the situation that making the call right there and then was kinda nonsense. Because if you think about it, 3 laps to go, and Daniel's 2.5 seconds up the road, and now free of Ocon, he's now a second a lap quicker than the Alpines. Yeah, good luck, Pierre. Even though Alpine should never have given the order, as it was really not going to work out where the cars are hard to overtake once more, they must have had the data to assume that Pierre had some pace to at least try, but he didn't have the pace. And then the team didn't follow through their usual protocol and allowed Ocon back through to 9th. And then came the tirade. Yes, I will absolutely admit that Ocon's conduct over the radio was extremely unprofessional, extremely passive-aggressive, as in like, wow, good job guys, wow, fantastic, I did my part, you didn't, oh god, great, I'm too nice, I shouldn't be a Mr. Nice Guy, oh. Yeah, Esteban, that was not a good look, I get it, you were frustrated, Alpine made not exactly the right call and they didn't give you the place back, that was not fair, still, you should have been quite cool about it and handled this more calmly. Especially in the media pen, but hey, Gasly can't keep his cool sometimes, so maybe there's not much you can do. Bruno Fahlmann claims that there was a reason that Alpine held position to the end instead of giving Ocon the place back, due to the fact that he had power unit problems, which caused him to fall back behind Ricciardo, and they were concerned that he would have held up Pierre and perhaps pushed them back towards the clutches of Hülkenberg and Magnussen, who generally were catching them up, with Nico only half a second behind Esteban at the end of the race. Yeah, okay, I could see that on paper as a valid reason, because hey, if you think about it, if they were both slow and Ocon had engine problems, then maybe at certain points of the track, if they tried to make the move, Nico could have made the most of the opportunity, swept past them, because at one point, he was about a second quicker than both of them. So it would have been really, really dubious and very, very careful as to when they picked that moment to swap positions back. It's tricky. But at the same time though, I don't really buy the power unit issue, because I look back through the lap times, and I don't really see Esteban having really big problems when it comes to engine power and lap times, because Pierre's lap times are around about the same on harder tyres. It's becoming quite clear that the real reason is because Esteban was defending for his life, keeping 8th place ahead of Ricciardo. He couldn't quite do it, Ricciardo got past, and by that time, Esteban had basically cooked his tyres, so therefore he did not have the pace in which to keep things up. So therefore, they thought, oh, he'll slow Pierre down, get him past, we're not going to give it back because he can't do it. And also Fahlmann spotted that maybe a double points finish was on the cards, after it looked possible at Monaco, and thusly neutralised the issue by telling Ocon to let Pierre pass and not give the place back. Fahlmann probably dreaded the two of them fighting each other again, and allowing Haas to make the most of it. To me, the team order was Alpine intervening and trying to make sure that no embarrassing crash or incident happened between Gasly and Ocon again. But I seriously doubt that both men would have allowed that to happen for a second time in as many races, because neither of them would have looked good. And also, judging by the fact the media basically hates Esteban Ocon right now, Gasly would most likely get away with it. But Esteban isn't innocent in all of this either, him telling the team to forget it. And I bet you that if Monaco hadn't happened, then Ocon would have never given Pierre the place, and then we might have had a situation where both Alpine drivers might have lost out on the opportunity for decent points, and Haas capitalising on it once again. The team radio plays out as a married couple trying to stick together for the sake of the kids. Or in this case, the Alpine coffers, since Williams failed to score and they could perhaps get some breathing space ahead of them for 8th place in the Constructors. Was Jack Villeneuve right to say that maybe Esteban had sabotaged the situation for Alpine? Perhaps, but at the same time, I think Alpine just sabotaged themselves and made themselves look to be utterly incompetent in being able to handle a neutralised Gasly-Ocon battle. It just looked absolutely shoddy. This, quite frankly, is more of a sign that the team is looking to the future without Ocon, and that if the boss had had his way, he wouldn't have been in Canada, Esteban, to fully act out his intentions laid out at Monaco, that serious consequences would have been undertaken. And the way I see it, the team is going to be starting to isolate Ocon from many discussions. If he had the cash, he probably would have paid Esteban off to go away, Jack Doohan subbing in for him for the rest of the season probably. But he can't do that, because I'm pretty sure that Ocon's contract is absolutely rock solid. But we find ourselves with a tricky dilemma for Esteban Ocon. What does he do in this situation where the team is clearly against you, and they don't seem to be really keen in keeping you? Does he put up with this situation to ensure he has a chance in F1, or does he rail against the team to highlight their current maladies at the expense of perhaps an overly negative media portrayal of him, just so it means that he can justify his existence to other teams? It's a complete and utter mess at that team, but one thing is for sure. The world's media is really not looking fondly toward Esteban Ocon, nor is the general consensus amongst the F1 fandom. Esteban tried to do his best with that big Instagram media post apologising, but his conduct in Canada really did not help the situation. It made him out to be the bad guy, but at the same time, Alpine were just as bad. And Gasly? He's just loving this. And another battle going on in F1 right now is the battle to secure the services of Carlos Sainz, with Williams being a surprise favourite for his tenure come next year. To find out why I think that move is not as bad as you might think, go and watch this video next, because James, he can't keep his hands off Carlos, seriously.